So it was sort of learning about actually what I was interested in, and then learning about how to research that on your own, and how to sort of direct your own research and make your own questions for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably the main thing I took away from uni.
Oh, okay.
So more kind of a self-reflection kind of activity.
And you say this kind of wasn't really a thing that was in secondary school and sixth form, so this was more something you gained during uni?
Yeah, I think so. I can't speak for everyone, but I think definitely, even sort of at A level, it did sort of feel like most of the time I was just memorising enough facts that the teacher had given me so that I could pass that exam.
Yeah.
Rather than actually, oh, that interests me, I'm going to learn more about that, or I'm going to write my essay about that. It was very much, this is your essay topic, and you need to memorise enough to get through that essay.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. So, yeah, it was nice to actually think about what I wanted to do and how I was going to learn about that certain topics.
Okay. So you'd say, like, at university, it's more like freedom and kind of focusing on what you like more than just set curriculums from exam boards?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, obviously me and Lima are at the same uni, so, you know, you can't get your dissertations. You can pick pretty much whatever you want to do for that. And it's up to you if you're going to write an essay or sort of make diagrams or make a sort of photographic study of something. And then even within sort of when you get given a brief, you can still very much pick sort of, you know, who exactly the building is going to be for in terms of a sort of studio brief, or how you might respond to the site, or how you're going to, you know, where the windows are going to go. And even within sort of the brief. So, for example, we did we had to design a bathhouse. So even within that, it might sound like something that's pretty sort of rigid. You know, you have to have changing rooms and you need to have a reception area and you're going to need to have swimming pools. But within that, there was so much scope. So there were so many different projects coming out of that and people having, you know, different types of pool, or they're sort of saying that they're going to sort of go against the pool idea and it's going to be more of a sort of open walkway with fountains and things like that. So I think there's just a lot more room to do what interests you and to focus on those bits that make it your project rather than theirs. So I think, that is quite different.
No, that is nice. Halima, what skills have you learned working in architecture that school didn't teach you?
I think this really probably depends a lot on what you studied in college and secondary, because for me, I always did a lot of humanities subjects. That was just what I was good at and what interested me. So, for example, my A-levels were psychology, English literature, and graphic communication. I also know another student on our course who did total opposite, maths, physics, biology. So you can come at architecture from really different backgrounds, but I think across the board you have some underlying sort of skills that just apply, like communication, being able to work in teams, and working independently. But then I think, like Amy's saying, kind of when you get to studying architecture, because it's such an intense course, you're working at like a higher level of like independence. Like your tutors aren't gonna spoon feed you in the same way that, you know, even college still does to an extent.
Yeah.
You really do have to have your own motivation and drive, because there's definitely days where you're like, why did I pick this course? And you are really, really relying on the people around you, whether that's family, if you're at home, or your friends. Like, you know, I think one of the nice things about the course is that even if you're not necessarily like best friends with everybody knows each other, and there's a camaraderie there. Everybody helps each other as well. So I think another thing is just being willing to like help other people out. Like if you know how to use a certain software, if you know how to, you know, give good presentations or something like that, and there's a skills that somebody else wants a bit of help with, just be willing to share. I think the worst thing is when people are holding back, being sort of overly competitive. I think is the disease to courses, I think. But yeah, those kind of skills of just you sort of self-develop, I think. Honestly, yeah, I think sharing information is a big one, because that way you also develop your skills better, because the tutors aren't teaching you everything, and because you're having to do so many things independently, you actually learn more from each other than anywhere else, really, other than Google, I guess. So yeah, that's what I would say for the things that I kind of learned studying architecture.
Yeah, no, that's interesting as well. I don't know if Safira can hear me, but if you can, what skills have you learned working in architecture that school didn't teach you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Perfect. Similar to what the other two were saying, I think independent learning and studying is a really big thing, because you go from school, like your GCSEs, your A levels, and you have guided learning. Whereas in architecture, especially for the undergrad course, it's kind of like, okay, here are your expected outcomes for the end of the week. You need to go and do them. That's kind of it. Like when it comes to, I don't know, for me, like I was never taught like this is how you draw a floor plan, or this is how you do this. You just get told by the end of the week, we want 5 floor plans, and we want a model, and we want a final render. And you're just sat there like, what? What does that even mean? So I think it's definitely like a lot of independent learning, like knowing that like you yourself will be capable of doing the work. You just gotta like take each task like in bite-sized chunks. So definitely kind of like a lot more intuition when it comes to self-study. You meet with your tutors like once a week. So, you know, there's not really like that, oh, let me go in today and my tutor's going to be there and I can just ask them and they can help me with this. So it's very much just like independent, completely different. But I think a lot of things with architecture, especially the undergrad course, you don't really get taught any of it before you do it. Everyone's doing it for the first time, because obviously there's no GCSE or A level. So if I'm being honest, you kind of learn everything as you go. Like even me now, like 7-8 months into my part 1, like even today, I'm still learning new things. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my general answer.
I think it's quite interesting that there's like a common theme between all three of you. You kind of said like the same thing but in different ways and from your own experiences, so I think that's quite like nice to see that there's one theme that's quite common between you three. But we're going to move on to question two. What types of projects do you find most rewarding? Amy, do you mind answering that one?
Yeah, sure. I think this is a hard one for me to answer right now, because I haven't really done a project in the real world, so this answer could change quite dramatically when I start working on projects that have a bit more of a real world implication. But I think whilst I was at uni, I think the most rewarding projects, I think I like doing the sort of more of the civic projects, so the large scale, especially sort of giving back to the whole community. That was the sort of projects I enjoyed the most, and particularly working with an existing building and having to think about environmentally how to preserve that building and work with it.
Yeah.
And create something new at the same time was quite a rewarding way of working, especially because you have such an initial restriction working with an existing building. So it was quite fun to see how you could go from that and make it your own and put your own stamp on it. So I'd probably say sort of civic buildings and then retrofit projects at the moment. But I'm going to see how that is when it's a real building, and that answer could change.
And wait, are retrofit projects where you work on an existing building?
Yes.
Oh, okay, interesting. I'm definitely going to have a look at that after, because I've never heard of that before. So, yeah. Halima, is it okay if you go next?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think I really enjoyed working, our first time working internationally on our course. So we got split our year group into 3 different like super studios, I suppose you call them. They were kind of, one was Mexico, Hiroshima, Japan, and then forgot Bergen in Norway. So we had like, we all split off for the first time ever. We weren't all placed on like the same area of the UK, and that allowed for such a massive, like, I think the first time ever I felt like, wow, there's so much scope here. You can see it so clearly, and there's so much vibrancy and like specific intriguing things about each place. So that was really brought out in everyone's projects, because then everyone's putting their own personal interpretation on those places, and they're picking certain things in those particular contexts that, you know, they can draw out and make like the concept of the project. So for me, I was based in the Hiroshima studio, and I really enjoyed it. And particularly, like for me, my concept was based around a specific annual event that happened in the park opposite my site, and that was like I so loved just delving into what that was all about, and it was just a sort of deep dive into Japan's like history of this particular event, and you know, why do they do it, why does it happen at this time of year, and that really sort of informed then the design of my project, literally down to the shape of it, and then to like what it was trying to do or achieve, and you know, bringing together the aging population, the young population, you know, visitors and locals in the area. So that for me was really rewarding, and I really enjoyed that project from, you know, start to end. And I also think that's just like a bit of advice going into architecture, like finding something that draws you in the initial stages, because you know, I mean, it might be tricky sometimes, but that is like the little spark that keeps you going throughout the project, because it can feel long and arduous at times, but that will only like become worse if you haven't found the thing that keeps you actually motivated to keep working on your project, because again, these projects are very self-motivated, to be honest. But yeah, I definitely found the international projects more rewarding, and then just going around the studios, seeing what everyone's getting up to and the way they decorated each studio, especially the Mexico one, it became really vibrant with all the colours of the sort of buildings there. So yeah, for me that was the most rewarding.
So would you say like the environment you're in influences your creativity?
Yeah, definitely, because for example, like Hiroshima had such a unique, like the typology, like buildings and stuff there was just so different to the UK. Everything we'd been doing prior to that, so that was it, because it was fresh and it was new. It was more exciting, and it was like, oh, okay, we're starting a new project, but it isn't like anything we've done before. And so I think that's what allowed me to sort of like throw myself head first into it. And I think that was probably my most efficient sort of semester as well, like working wise. And I genuinely believe it is because of that genuine interest in the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, context definitely does help.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting as well. Zafira?
I think, yeah, Halima's last point about finding what interests you early on is a really, really good point, because I was quite lucky. I found, once I knew I wanted to do architecture, I found what type of architecture I was really interested in. And that still remained the same for me now, like 7 years later. So I think that's like such a good point to stay informed and, you know, do your research about what you really enjoy. Like for me, I'm really, really interested in that gap, how to bridge that gap between our natural world and architecture, and how the two can be harmonious together. So for me, those types of projects are so rewarding. Like that's what I want to do further down the line, and it's kind of what I based my dissertation and my graduation project on. But right now for work, it's not what I'm doing. I'm actually kind of doing something almost opposite. It's quite corporate. They're hospitals, so I'm working kind of with NHS, with building like large scale hospitals. Wow. And it is rewarding, because literally like last week I got photos in from my first project where construction has finished. So just seeing stuff that you've done, like even something simple, like I chose a wall colour for part of the hospital department, and seeing it painted up, I was like, oh my gosh, I did that. So I think it really differs. I think obviously hospitals are rewarding because the use of it is really, really important to our society. But I also have like a passion for, you know, architecture and nature and stuff. But yeah. I think it's nice to find like lots of different types rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. So would you say like in the hospital project, you're able to incorporate the environment sustainability into that, or was it quite restricted to, we want concrete buildings, this is how it's going to be type of thing?
So normally with architecture, I think especially doing the undergrad, there's not really a right or wrong. You know, you often get told there's no wrong answer, but designing hospitals, there is a wrong answer. So, you know, like things have to be done a specific way just for, ensuring that the walls stay clean, So there's a lot more rules and regulations when it comes to healthcare projects, because they've got to follow really strict rules and regulations. So when it comes to the environment as well, especially on mass scale projects like hospitals, it's not really something, they're obviously they're not doing, okay, let's see what we can do to damage the environment. But there are so many boxes you have to tick when you design a hospital, and they're often so big and so complex that the environment isn't the number one, stakeholder.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the users, it's the clients, it's, the patients, the nurses, the doctors.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, on that note, we're going to go to question number 3. So this is kind of it's to do with architecture, but it's more to do with the students in the teams right now. What college/university should I enroll in to study architecture? I'm going to go to Halima to switch things up.
I think for this, it really depends, because every year or a few years, I feel like my answer would maybe change, because if I was a student right now, I'd be doing what I did back when I was looking at architecture unis, and that's like looking at not just like league tables, because they're like I think one layer of information, but also like what there's like a specific government page which also ranks uni based on what students say about the quality of the course and its teaching facilities and their sort of graduate prospects, things like that. So it actually goes into using real data from students. I forget the name of it, otherwise I'd write it down here. But I'll try and find it and put it down. But that's what I used to like weigh up between the unis that I was looking at the time, which is really the best from student perspectives. And then beyond that, also looking at forums as well. Again, I think the big emphasis here really is what a student's saying, not what the uni is saying, because the uni can say what it likes, but the uni also has to promote itself. But you want to hear it from what students have said, and that's the past students who have done the course. So in terms of what uni you should enroll in it, that's the best way to go about it. And you can also take, I think, league tables as well, as sort of when you're first looking at the unis, just looking at which ones are the best ones so far, and then sort of like zoom in from there.
Yeah. So would you say like it's not really as important to go to a top uni, rather something that like is better to support students and stuff?
I think a good uni should be able to support students. Those should just go hand in hand. I don't think it should be at the top if it does a bad job of representing student voice, actually, students getting feedback on time, those kind of things. And the ones that stay in the top, from my experience, they usually do a good job of that. I mean, in my experience, I think Sheffield did. I've definitely heard of unis that did a lot worse in that regard.
Okay. Wait, what were those universities?
Well, I don't want to slay any, but Manchester
fair
at the time was pretty bad for it.
Okay. Stay away from Manchester. No, I'm joking. Amy, what college/university should I enroll to study architecture?
I guess it's probably I think Halima kind of hit the nail on the head that, you shouldn't just look at where that architecture course ranks according to The Guardian or The Times. Definitely look at that. I definitely did. And, there probably is a reason that they rank somewhere. But I think the thing about uni is, I'm not sure if this is what the uni would say, but it really isn't all about the course. And it shouldn't all be about architecture. So I think you also need to think about, how far away do I want to live from home? Because if you want to live at home, that's going to limit you, and that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But equally, you want to think about, where you might want to live and where the accommodation is, and what societies are like. If you do a really niche sport, you want to make sure you can do that, because it's 3 years, which is kind of a long time to pick somewhere, and it's not just studying there. You're living there, and you're meeting people from there, and you're getting involved in the activities there. So it's not just as simple as where do you want to study architecture. It's also like, where do you actually want to live and be?
Yeah.
I can't go against Lima. We went to Sheffield, and yeah, I had a really nice time there. And I thought it was great and all. But I think you probably just need to go and look round and see where you kind of get a good vibe, and definitely speak to people and sort of see what they say. Because that's how I ended up deciding, just based off of talking to some of the people working at the open days and just asking them if they were happy, basically. Because that's got to be number one. So probably, yeah, I haven't got a uni to recommend specifically, but
Right, fair enough.
yeah, exactly what Halima said, really.
Yeah, no, thank you. Sophia, can you add to that of anything, or?
Yeah, I think I'll try to take more like a how can you prepare for this a few years in advance. So for me, I decided that I wanted to do architecture after I picked my A-levels. So naturally that actually eliminated specific courses because I didn't do maths or physics. And there are universities which have specific subject requirements. You will find that generally with architecture, a lot of the courses have no subject requirements. You just need a portfolio. You probably have some form of interview. But there were courses like Bath, for example, and Strathclyde. When I was applying, which was actually quite a long time ago, they did need maths and physics. So naturally the courses are going to take on a more technical approach. Whereas I was looking for courses which took on a more creative approach. So definitely figuring out early on if you want to go the more physics architecture route or the more art architecture route, because that will naturally divide up where you can and can't go. And I think, the other 2 points about what city you're going to. I went to Newcastle. I went really, really far, but I loved it so much. I think doing research about the city that you'll be in, because you will literally be awake 24/7 in that city. So making sure that you can, you'll be happy there. So I think, it's a balance between what kind of architecture do I want to do, what the course provides, like is the course creative, is it technical, each course is going to be so different. So definitely doing your research into that and then research into the city that you're in. But I would also say one thing that I did realise post-graduating and then getting a job is that sometimes, I know this is a bit of a devil's advocate, sometimes ranking does matter because when you're sending a CV to a job, realistically, the unis with the higher ranking, they're naturally just going to stand out a little bit more. I'm not saying it's the end all or be all. Like my uni wasn't, top 2, top 3 at all. So, I don't think it is end all or be all. But it's definitely something to consider. If you can aspire to go and reach for those ones, then I would definitely suggest to do it. But keep the others in mind as well, I think.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I don't really have any questions about that. I think you answered it pretty well, all three of you. So we're going to go on to question number 3. Now, this is what a lot of people, I'm sure, are wondering, and we're probably going to ask you guys, but I've asked it already now, so I'm sorry in advance. What are architecture universities / colleges looking for in an art portfolio? Now, I know all 3 of you have probably submitted a portfolio to get into architecture, so I was just kind of wondering what they kind of look for, what not to put in as well, because I know a lot of people sometimes put the wrong things in and they just kind of think, we didn't ask for this. So, yeah, I'm going to go to Amy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back now, because it was a while ago, but I think when I did it, I don't remember really being told don't put that in or anything like that. I do think all they want to see is that you can express yourself in a creative way and that you are a creative person. And I think probably that you're willing to try new things. So I took A-level art and I did GCSE art. So I think that was a big win in terms of actually having material to potentially put in a portfolio. And then I just selected a range of pieces from that. So some different medias, different compositions, that kind of thing. And just put them together. I think I just used PowerPoint, to be honest, or Google Slides and just put them together on that because I knew how to use it and it was easy. And just made sure to just arrange it nicely and not make the pages too busy and, leave a few gaps. I think I basically use no words except to say, maybe pencil drawing on paper. And one thing I definitely didn't do was really try and make it architecture-y.
Oh, okay.
I had no architecture experience. I'd never drawn a plan. I had a few sketches of some buildings, but the bulk of my portfolio was actually acrylic paintings and a lot of portrait work, and it was completely fine. I got offers from 3 out of the 5 universities I applied to. So, yeah, there's no need to make it architecture related, I don't think, because like people already said, you're not going there with much prior knowledge of architecture other than maybe having done a little bit of background research and read a few things and watched a few TV programs. So there's no need to show them before they've taught you that you know how to do architecture type drawings. So I think my advice would just be to do the sort of creative stuff that you want to do and take some decent photographs of it and just arrange it nicely enough and send it off, and not to worry about it too much, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Halima, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would basically agree with everything that Amy said. Like, you want to make sure it's laid out very clearly and your pages aren't busy, and that your photos are actually good quality. I also think you should try on your sort of major pieces, things that you're particularly proud of, that maybe required like a bit more time, a bit more work. Like, I don't know, maybe a final piece in your A level or something. Stick a process photo in there or something. Just like one, make it small. Like, don't let it overshadow the actual main piece, because they like to see that. It's something that we also do in architecture anyways. When you put together portfolios and you're presenting your work, you want to show them how you got there. That's like actually the main thing. You want to see the process, like what is your thinking behind something. So they'll probably appreciate seeing that. That's what I did on a few of my pages. I also put mine together in PowerPoint because we wouldn't have I don't think we had many options back then. And it wasn't really a long time ago, but I certainly didn't know how to use InDesign or anything back then. So yeah, PowerPoint's actually pretty good. It's all just about how you're putting things on the pages. And I'd also say that you want a variety of media and stuff. So for me, I did a lot of graphics from graphic communication A level, but I also did some hand sketching in different media. So I did I think ink pens and stuff, pencil sketching, and I also didn't really have any architecture in there, except for I think a mono print of a building. So yeah, stuff like that. And I think, just showing that you can do a lot of stuff, but more importantly that you're I don't know, have a creative eye.
Yeah.
That you're sometimes looking at things through a different lens. You're not just literally reproducing something that's I don't know, super hyper realistic or something, and that's all you can do. Be proud of things you can do well, but don't just do that. Show them that you have variety, and that's why use different media is a good way of doing that.
Yeah.
And I think Sheffield also have specific tasks that they require you to do, and I think other unis might have this too. I think Sheffield's at the time was you have to draw your own street or something like that, and then put a 200-word description or something of it. But again, even with that, don't take it so literally. They are literally asking you to think outside the box. Don't just actually draw your street, which is what I did to begin with, actually. And then I realised it was so bad, so I scrapped it and I had to do it again. But I'm glad I did it again, because you have to sort of see what they're actually saying behind the sort of instruction. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you. Zafira?
Yeah, I think definitely one really important one is a variety of mediums. So to definitely have pencil drawings, definitely have some form of painting or monoprint or anything like that. I think it's quite nice to also have 3D work in there as well, because a lot of the time with architecture courses, especially your first year, you're probably going to do some form of model making. So, you know, showing that you have the ability to create something in 3D, I think is really good. I definitely would reiterate their point about not making your portfolio architectural, because chances are whoever's looking at your work is going to be really, really experienced in architecture. And as someone who's not had any experience, they're probably going to look at it and go, that's wrong. So just, I'd say avoid that. I mean, if you've got something that you're proud of, yeah, I think 1 or 2, but I was definitely told don't have any. So none of my portfolios had any drawings of buildings. And I think one like practical tip is show that you understand, obviously, creativity, but show that you understand proportion and stuff like that. I had life drawing in mind, which I think really helped, and in interviews I got asked a lot of questions about the life drawing. So if you're able to do like life drawing or still life to show that you're able to, you know, visually see something and then accurately draw it on your paper, that's quite a good transferable skill to what architecture kind of is. And
did you add any like photography into your portfolio or anything like that?
I actually didn't. I did GCSE art and GCSE A level, and my portfolio was a bunch of quick sketches, life drawing. I had a acrylic painting, and then I had quite a bit of sculpture work, like with clay and porcelain. But I think you just got to do what you're interested in. Like, I personally wasn't too interested in photography. Like, I was mainly interested in sculptures and paintings, so I knew that was my strength. So go with your strength. So if you know you've got a really good eye for photography, then showcase that, but definitely show that you can do a variety. I think hand-drawn skills are really important for what universities or colleges look for.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna whiz through the last question because I'm sure people have questions to ask you guys. So this is kind of like a question I was just kind of curious about. It doesn't have to be a long answer again. But what does the future for architecture / architects look like to you? I'm going to go to Halima. Switch up a bit.
I mean, I feel like this is a big question, to be honest, because given that I'm not really going in the architecture direction anymore, I think it's probably easier to assume that my view is more negative. But I mean, it's just sort of like architecture is just like any other field. I think with the advancement of tech, with the increasing sustainability and all these things, you're going to see it change increasingly, and we have already. I think it's a bit hard to predict like what exactly that will look like. That's something that I think our generation will experience, like going through the profession now. A lot of these are rapid shifts, like is AI going to be used to design buildings and things like that. How much of like traditional design is there going to be in like the next 10-20 years? I think everything is really just up in the air, sort of things for contemplation right now, to be honest. So for me, I couldn't say I have like an accurate idea of it. I don't really think it's going to be, like the flashy images that we get of pristine white skyscrapers with green coming out of them and stuff. I feel like that might be a bit boring, to be honest. I think we'd want a more variety than that. But yeah, honestly, I couldn't say for sure. Those are just sort of my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I honestly agree with the flashy white buildings as well, for sure. Amy, can you answer that?
Yeah, Haley was right. That's a big question. I think that there's definitely going to be some changes to how architects work, and you can already see that there's a lot of different technologies and software coming sort of into the field that I imagine are going to get used more. And sort of even within sort of architectural education, I think they're starting to change that. And I think sort of there's even just with some of the more basic sort of 3D softwares like Revit and Rhino and things like that, I do feel like they're only just sort of starting to learn how to properly teach that. And that's not even really a new thing. That's been used a lot for a while now. So it would be interesting to see how that's going to change. And then I think also there is going to be a lot more thinking about the buildings that we already have and how to make those fit for the future.
Yeah.
Rather than the new buildings, because I can't remember the figure at all, but a significant portion of buildings that are going to exist in like 2050 are already built. So in terms of actually addressing the climate emergency and that kind of thing, it is actually going to be about architects looking at how to improve buildings we already have, as opposed to necessarily just designing new ones. So I guess that'll be a new challenge for architects and a new sort of focal point.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know what to say. You guys answer the questions so well. Like, you leave me kind of speechless, to be honest. I'm going to go to Sophia, though.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think there's definitely going to be more of a push towards sustainable practices. I think there'll probably be a big push towards ensuring more architects are passive house registered and they're educated on that, you know, reducing your carbon emissions through buildings, how also you can make buildings more efficient when you build them, you know, so ensuring that, you know, especially in resi, you know, houses aren't losing too much heat, so you don't have to have heating on for, you know, longer, trying to reduce energy. And hopefully it looks a little bit more like innovative as well. I think what I'm really interested in as well, again, going back to the nature thing, but, you know, how can we use what the environment has given us to create sustainable practices, you know, even if it's just through materiality. But I think, you know, the other two answer the question really well. I think it's going to look a lot more sustainable. I think there's going to be bigger implementations in practice as well, you know, how throughout the whole design process, you know, all stages of design, you know, making sure sustainability is at the forefront.
Wait, so do you think AI is going to kind of go hand in hand with sustainability in the future somehow?
You know what? Well, after working in practice, I would love to see AI do what I have to do. I think, number one, some of the tasks are so boring that I think an AI machine itself would be like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to let a human do this. But I don't know. It's a really hard question. I think AI is going to look so different even in the next year, in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years. It's developing so rapidly. It's so hard to know. But currently, right now in my practice, it's not implemented at all.
Wow, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I mean, even stuff like the rendering software with AI, it's not at a point yet where it can fully render things like for like. You know, there are specific machines which we use, like rendering softwares. Like AI can't quite do it exact, you know, like to scale. Like it can give you a rough general image of what it's going to look like, but if you look closely, you know, the like human render might have like 3 hands, you know, it's not quite there yet, but who knows, in the next 5-10 years it probably will be.
Yeah. Fair enough, but we have come to the end.
I think to add to that,
that's okay.
I think it won't just affect like architecture AI, it also affects construction, you know, the physical construction methods and stuff as well, because for example, one project that I looked at in third year was a building that wasn't designed by architects, it was designed by scientists, and that sounds kind of weird, but what they were trying to do is test like the latest technologies in building a building, and they used one machine that was sort of it was designed like a curved, like a really curvy thin metal concrete wall, which isn't possible really with humans, so it needed to be done with a specific machine, and that had like a programmed fixed sort of route almost on how exactly it was going to put that together, from like installing this sort of metal rebar and then putting in that concrete to make it follow along and then set in that path. So it was completely done by this machine, but that used AI and just sort of, you know, whatever tech they used to build that machine, to totally construct a wall basically, which couldn't be replicated by human beings. So that's something else to be aware of, because you do have like your traditional ways of building, which I think are slow moving to change. Like we're not suddenly going to have like a machine that does all the bricklaying and stuff, or, you know, does all the you know, electricals, things like that. But I think we probably will start to see like more automation in small ways, sort of being tested to build things that may not have been buildable before.
Yeah. Okay, so we have come to the end of my questions, but that was the end of my questions. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. So I'm sure maybe there'll be people that have questions to ask. So if anyone wants to unmute and ask any questions, feel free to now about anything. Yeah. I don't know if anyone.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is more of a general sort of thing, but like, what is it about your current role that keeps you happy and motivated to achieve your work every day?
Anyone can take that, honestly.
I don't mind starting probably because I've just come back from work. So has Halima actually on my first day. Congrats, by the way. I think there are two answers. Number one, money. It's nice to have your own money and be, financially independent. I think that's one thing that's actually really, really nice. Like, you're studying for a long time, and I think having a job and having that daily structure, like specific working hours, I think going from studying architecture where you're doing 12, 13, 14-hour days sometimes to actually just having like a 9 to 5 is really satisfying to just click off at the end of the day and go, done. But other than that, I think it's really satisfying and rewarding to see something that you from the beginning of a project to the end, and see it through various stages of construction. It is quite different when you're in practice. Like, it's a lot more regimented. There are a lot more rules you have to follow, and also every day, especially as a part one, constantly learning. Like every day I'm going in and I'm doing something new, and there's always a feeling of, I don't know how to do this, but I know that when I leave work I'll know how to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, just had to pop up. But yeah, that's my answer.
Does anyone else have a question? I think I saw someone on mute, but I'm not sure they've gone.
My question is about employability, like after university. Would you say it's hard to find a job as a part one architect after you finish your undergraduate?
I don't want to...
Yeah, sorry.
No, go on. Halima, but maybe we both give our answers because we went, I think, different routes. But I found it actually really hard. I mean, the job market right now is actually really, really tough. So much that I actually took a significant amount of time off. I graduated like two years ago, and I only started my part one role this February. So I personally did find it really hard. I think it's just the current times that we're in right now where, there are more people than there are jobs available. But I think you just have to keep trying. I think the right one will land. And I think it's important to try different techniques. What I found really useful was printing a portfolio and actually going in. But yeah, maybe Halima have something as well.
I agree. Like it's really, really hard, and that's actually one of the factors that influenced my decision to not pursue architecture. I'm not saying I just quit architecture because I could get a job. Like I was just kind of being realistic about, well, do I want it that badly and to have to work this hard for it too? I think if you are passionate about it, go for it. Like do put the effort in and it will pay off. But as Safira is saying, it is really hard. For the brief amount of time that I was looking at architecture jobs, it was frequently just 100+ applications, and even still I kind of swipe past sometimes and looking back at LinkedIn jobs almost like nostalgia or something in a twisted sense, and it's still seeing the same figures. And when LinkedIn says 100+, it's probably 200 something else, something crazier. And it's not just architecture assistant jobs. I think that goes for a lot of jobs in different industries. That we're just specifically looking at this because it is architecture, but generally just I think the economy kind of sucks right now, and things aren't great for the UK at the minute. So that's probably a big part of it. But yes, there is also a huge amount of graduates and not enough jobs. There are a lot of architecture schools, and then not enough architecture react to the situation. That's not to like put you off like do study architecture, because it can take you so many other places too. As in my case, like stepping away from that and trying to pursue project management instead. You can go, for example, with that into construction project management. So there's jobs that you probably never heard of before, and then you get to the end of your 3 years, and then you're like, oh wait, I have all these options which I didn't know about 3 years ago. So pick. I don't regret studying architecture at all. Like, I'm really happy to, and I would do it again. But yeah, I think architecture gives you a lot of scope and a lot of flexibility to do other things. So just bear in mind that you don't have to become an architect after this. My goal from year 6, believe it or not, was to become an architect. And I will say it definitely gave me the drive, motivation to pursue, like, to do well in school and to pursue architecture and get to uni and stuff. But after uni, like, literally life changes and your mindset changes everything. So, just, like, I think have that care for yourself as well, to be okay with changing paths a little bit. But don't, like, hate yourself if you don't become an architect or something like that. And do other things in your time after being an architect, being an architect student, and see what else you enjoy, because, I think studying architecture can be a little soul draining. And then, it does make you feel a bit like, well, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? But you might just need a break from it, honestly, and then coming back into it, and going into what you really like about architecture as well, like Sophia has done.
Yeah. I think we can take about like 3 more questions, because this is going to kick us out in like 10 minutes. So I don't know how to say. I think it might be Malika in the chat said, if anyone has done a displacement year, sorry, I'm stuck in physics mode. Sorry, I don't know why I said displacement. Can someone else read out the question that Malika said, because it's actually really small on my screen.
Yeah, I can see it if you need. It says, if anyone has done a placement year as part of university, has it been easier to get a job or get links and connections? I don't do a placement year, so I can't be much help for that question, sorry.
I don't. We also didn't have a placement year, but I think Bath does that, and from what I've kind of heard, I think honestly, if you do any course, architecture or not, that gives you a placement year, if you have work experience, that just is a big bonus for any employer. I think it's like, well, they've actually worked in a real workplace. They aren't just a graduate coming out of education, because academia is very different to a workplace also. So I think, yeah, it probably is a bonus to do that. But I don't know about, like, does it really help you get a job more quickly? I don't think in the case of architecture, you're just thinking, like, you've just landed a job, like, 100% faster than someone else. Like, yeah, I think it will still take time.
We had some placement year students come in for work experience, who just started their their year 3. And the one thing I would say about placement year, and I'm not sure if this is the same for all unis, but depending on where you are, there's only going to be a certain amount of practices which can take you in. So I have heard of scenarios where there's a placement year, but you still kind of have to fight tooth and nail a little bit to get it, because, whatever city you're in, there's only going to be a specific amount of architecture practices, and they're only going to take on a certain amount of students. But I think it's worth doing the research. But what I have heard from other people is that some people who have joined a course with placement years haven't always gotten a spot. So I think just do a bit of research into, like, if it's a guaranteed that you'll get it, or, if not.
Yeah. I hope that answered your question, Malika. Neil said, how do real world projects differ from school projects? Anyone? Maybe Amy, because I feel like we haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, to be honest, that probably Zafira is the best person to ask that.
Oh.
I can guess that there's a lot of things that I don't have to think about with a uni project that I'm sure that Zafira has to deal with all of the time. Like, I have no budget. At uni, there's no budget.